Slavery. When we hear that word, many of us immediately think of the transatlantic slave trade, ships crossing the ocean, Africans forced into bondage in the Americas. But here's the truth. Slavery was not unique to one place or one people. Slavery was practiced everywhere. Across history, across continents, across cultures, slavery existed. In ancient Mesopotamia and in Egypt, among the Greeks and the Romans. In Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas before European contact. It was a system of power, of control, and of exploitation that almost every civilization, at some point, engaged in. The Romans enslaved conquered peoples, the Gauls, Greeks, Jews, and many others, making slavery a backbone of their economy. In West Africa, long before European ships arrived, rival kingdoms captured and sold their enemies into servitude. In Asia, China's dynasties kept bonded laborers and domestic slaves. In India, certain castes lived under hereditary servitude. Even among the Vikings, raids across Europe brought back men, women, and children who were bought and sold. In the Americas, the Aztecs and Mayans enslaved prisoners of war, while some indigenous tribes practiced forms of captivity. This doesn't erase or excuse the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade. The sheer scale, brutality, and racialized nature of it made it one of the darkest chapters in human history. But it's important to understand, slavery was not born in 1619. It was older than recorded history itself. It's true that slavery existed in many cultures throughout history, like in Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas. However, not all forms of slavery were the same. For example, chattel slavery in the transatlantic trade treated enslaved people as property for life, with status passed on to their children, a racialized system unprecedented in scale and brutality. In some other societies, enslaved people could marry, buy their freedom, or eventually assimilate. Equating all slavery ignores these critical differences. The Atlantic slave trade was massive. Over 12 million Africans were transported to the Americas. It wasn't just slavery, but also racialized, industrialized, and global, shaping modern capitalism, geopolitics, and systemic racism. Saying everyone did it obscures how central this particular system was to the development of Europe and the Americas. The argument is often used to deflect responsibility from specific groups, nations, or systems that benefited from slavery, for example, colonial powers, the US, etc. Instead of engaging with the consequences of slavery, ongoing racial inequality, wealth gaps, systemic discrimination, it shifts the focus to general history. Even if slavery was universal, its modern legacies are not universal. The transatlantic system created racial categories, white supremacy, and institutions that still shape global inequalities today. Other historical forms of slavery did not leave behind the same racialized, systemic impact. Everyone did it doesn't excuse it. By that logic, we could dismiss almost any historical atrocity, for example war, conquest, sexism, simply because it wasn't unique. In short, the all races practiced slavery argument is misleading because it erases the unique scale, racialization, and lasting impact of the transatlantic slave trade and is often used to downplay accountability or the ongoing effects of slavery today.